or the concealed permit.
Okay.
Those can be transferred into general fund.
It's behind the.
So it'd be from enterprise kind of department.
Mine was wrong.
Right, I don't believe that those, so those wouldn't include, like, for example, Parks and Rec, that's their own village. And they pay for administration, basically. They pay in some amount, but I don't think those are, but those would not be transferred.
Those are indirect, aren't they?
Those are indirect. But they're not transferred in.
Right.
Call the finance committee of the whole to order. Stand for the pledge, please.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And Madam Clerk, a roll call, please.
Commissioner Weber,
Here.
Commissioner Campbell,
Here.
Commissioner Jelzinski,
Here.
Commissioner Engler,
Here.
Commissioner Marino,
Here.
Commissioner Swaney,
Here.
Commissioner Holt.
Here.
All present, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Up next will be approval of the agenda. We'll start out with general public comments on agenda items only. We will have a presentation on the annual comprehensive financial report. We have a few appointments to boards and commissions, several business items, including several 2% grant requests. And then we had no intergovernmental affairs, no administrative controller issues, no unfinished business, no new business. We'll have general public comment again, and then announcements and adjournment. So that is our motion to approve the agenda.
So moved, Marino.
Support, Jelzinski. Moved and supported. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Anyone opposed? Very good. We have an agenda, and first up will be general public comments on agenda items.
First of all, thank you for those that answered my questions earlier. I just have one more question. Item number 5. Could you please explain to me when you get to that item, what the recreation passport grant is, how many new cabins will be built, if bathrooms will be built in those cabins, how many of those previous cabins will be remodeled? And secondly, how much profit does Herrick Park take in a year? Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for general public comments? Seeing no one else, we'll move right along to our presentation, the fiscal year 2024 annual comprehensive financial report and the supplementary information to financial statements.
Good morning, everyone. I am Doug Dieter with Raymond, and we performed the audit for the county this year as of September 30, 2024. What I passed out to you guys, just run through real quick, the big bound document is the full audit report, all 210 pages or so. And then the next one is a smaller bound. This is related to the federal compliance of the awards received from the federal government during the year. The one on our letterhead is, as auditors, we're required to have certain communications between us and the board. So that's what's in this document. And then also there's the PowerPoint that is on the screen as well as printed in front of you. Just kind of summarize these three documents. We want to go through all those pages. So trying to make it a little easier on you guys to follow along. So, and if there's any questions as I go through, please don't hesitate to interrupt and ask questions as I go slide to slide. And then on most of the slides, there is a reference at the top corner of the slide to page numbers. That's going to be the page numbers found in these documents. If you want more information on what's in that page, you can go to that page in the document and find the additional information related to that. I want to start off with, to have an audit, there's two parties, obviously, the county, which is the auditee, us as auditors. Each party has their own responsibilities through the audit process. This first page is what county's responsibilities are. So Brian and Chris, their group, what are their responsibilities to have a successful audit? The first one is preparation and fair presentation of the audited financial statements. So all these documents here, these two documents are county documents. They are the responsibility of the county. Through the audit process, we do help prepare them, but the ultimate responsibility lies with the county on those documents. County is required to design, implement, and maintain internal controls. So these are the checks and balances through the financial process to make sure that things are being recorded properly, things are reviewed, and there's nothing that gets through that shouldn't be recorded, and everything is recorded correctly. Then the final item is make sure all the financial records and related information. So basically anything we ask for through the audit process is made available to us, which was the case here. Obviously, we had a successful audit and the documentation was provided timely for us. The next slide looks at what our responsibilities as auditors are. Our responsibility is to issue an opinion on these documents, whether they are fairly stated in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles, which are the standards to follow for governmental GAAP. We plan and perform our audit to obtain reasonable rather than absolute assurance. So an audit doesn't look at every single transaction the county does every year. That wouldn't be very efficient audit and it would take forever. So, we sample populations, we test certain things, but we don't look at everything. So we give you a reasonable assurance that what you see here is correct, but it can't be absolute. So we're not looking at every transaction. And then the final one is to communicate significant matters from the audit to you as the board. And that's what this is for here. So we issued what's called an unmodified opinion on the financial statements. It means the financial statements are fairly presented. Here you see again in all material respects in conformity with generally accepted accounting principles. So this is basically a clean opinion, the same opinion the county has received over the years. And just to note, there are 3 component units that we didn't audit. They're audited by other audit firms, but they are included in your documents because of general accepted accounting principles requires them to be there. So we don't do any procedures on those 3 component units, the road commission, transportation, and medical care, but we rely on the other auditors and provide the information in our audit report. We'll look at the general fund to start with, and this is the balance sheet. So this is as of September 30, 2024. This lists all the assets, liabilities, and then what's left over is fund balance. So that total assets was $21,368,000. Most of that you can see is in cash and investments of $17.5 million. Some receivables, a lot of this is from the state and other grants and other types of items of $2.4 million. Some other funds of the county owe the general fund $887,000. The county advanced some funds to the component unit for $350,000. And then the other assets is like prepaids, inventories, stuff like that. The next section is liabilities. So this is stuff that the county incurred before year end and wasn't paid until subsequent to year end. So you have your accounts payable. This is your normal trade AP, normal trade vendor invoices and that type of thing for services incurred prior to year end. You have your accrued payroll, so the amount of time your employees worked through September 30 that wasn't paid until the next pay period in October. General fund owes a little bit of money to other funds. And then there's some other $264,000. That's made up of several different smaller amounts in there. Fund balance is broken down into 4 different categories. The first one is non-spendable of 522,000. So what that is there's certain long-term type items in the asset section. So for example, the advanced to component units. That's an asset of the county, but it's not available for spending because you loan that money out. So it just kind of segregates fund balances. This isn't available currently to be spent. Committed, so the county has said we have a plan for this $3.4 million. And so that is set aside as well. A commitment can be changed at any time by the board if they choose. But at September 30 year end, that was the plan for those funds. There's an amount assigned of 3.3. So again, this is a little lower level of set aside, if you will, where the county has plans for these funds, but there's no required or external restrictions of what they be spent on. So that leaves an unassigned of 11,435,000. So this is kind of what's left over after all your bills are paid and your committed fund balance, your assigned fund balance is taken out. That's what's left over for future spending that doesn't have any attachment to it yet. Any questions on that? No. Next, we'll look at the general fund revenues and transfers. So transfers in are the funds of the county transfer money back and forth. So the general fund, you see transfers in, that's money coming from another fund. You also see transfers out, where that's the general fund sending money to other funds. So the top is a pie chart broken down by the significant categories of your revenue streams. The bottom is the dollar amounts. You can see, as expected for most counties, property taxes is your largest revenue line item, about $16.3 million. Intergovernmental, this is your state and federal revenue, was 9.9 million. Charges for services of 1.4 million. This is the county provides services to the public and other places that pay for it, and therefore the people are paying for the service that you're providing. So that's what that is. The transfers in of $1,054,000 is from the other funds, and then the other is 1.5 million. A lot of that has to do with your investments and the return on your investments. So the over budget of $520,000 on that line item is almost all related to how the market was doing at September 30, 2024. So you had budgeted about $426,000 less for your investment return than you actually got. So that's something that changes day to day. This is just as one point in time. I'm sure, as everybody knows, the stock market has taken a total turn right now. So it's just something to keep in mind, that is something that fluctuates on a regular basis. Next slide looks at the general fund expenditures and transfers out. Again, the pie chart at the top by the main functions, and then the dollar amounts at the bottom. You can see the largest category for the county, as it is for most counties, is public safety, about almost $13 million compared to a budget of $14 million. There was under budgets where the sheriff and corrections were significantly under budget, about $650,000 and $400,000 respectively. The next category is your judicial, so your courts of almost $6 million, and then your general government of 5.8. That's your clerk, treasurer, finance. I mean, that's a lot of whatever doesn't fall in one of the other categories falls into that category. The transfers out of 5.7 million. Majority of that was 3.2 transferred to the jail project as part of a match on that program or that project to ensure the funds are there to complete it. Next page just kind of summarizes the previous two pages. So we look at the total revenue transfers in of 30.8 million for the year for the general fund compared to expenditures and transfers out of 32.5 million. So if you look at the final budget, the middle line there, the county expected to have a decrease in fund balance of 5,331,000. Through the actual results of the year, the fund balance only reduced 1.7 million. So you had a positive $3.6 million change in fund balance, where it reduced less than you were expecting it to through the budget process. One measurement of the health of the general fund is, how large is the fund balance, and as one component is, how long could you pay your bills if nothing else came in the door? No more revenue came in. How long could you operate? So we look at unassigned fund balance to 1 year's expenditures, and that's about 35%. So that's a little bit on the higher end. So it's a good, healthy fund balance. But again, you've got the construction project you need to make sure it gets completed, and you've got other things So really want to have a long-term plan of that fund balance of where you want that money to go and what, how much you want sitting there. So there is no hard and fast rule of how much fund balance you have. It's really, what do you foresee you need in the future to make sure you continue to operate without going into a deficit. So to give you an idea on the next slide of the general fund balance, the last 5 years. In 2020, you're at just under $9 million fund balance. 2024, you're up to 18.7. So you can see the decrease from 23 to 24 that I mentioned earlier. A lot of that has to do with the construction project, right? You had money set aside to help fund that construction project of the jail. Next one is the county participates in the MERS defined benefit pension plan for its employees and retirees. And this is measured as of December 31st based on MERS plan year end. So it's not based on the county's year end. So the top line is for your fiscal year, September 30, 2024 is actually based on December 31st, 2023 MERS year end. Okay, so we're a little time lag, about 9 months there of the information you see here. So the total pension liability of 61.4 million. MERS hires an actuary to calculate based on various assumptions, how much do we think this plan is going to cost from today throughout until the last person is alive in the plan, and what is that cost expected to be? So it's an estimate based on a lot of various assumptions that MERS puts into place with their actuaries. The plan net position, the next column of 40,821,000, that is the contributions provided by the county to MERS. It's invested by MERS and hasn't been paid out to beneficiaries yet. So that's kind of what's available to pay those future benefits. The difference between the two is called the net pension liability, which is the next column, which for the county of September 30, 2024, the net pension liability is 20,570,000. So that's basically the unfunded portion of your pension plan right now. Not a negative thing. It looks like a big number, a big liability, and it is, but it's something that's going to be paid over many, many years in the future. So it's not something due today. It's not something due in 10 years. You're going to pay a little bit each year on that. So the plan is about 66.5% funded, which is a fairly good funded plan for MERS. And it's above the threshold that MERS requires plans to be funded before a corrective action plan is required. So MERS is looking at those plans that are underfunded significantly, and they want to have a plan from those entities to ensure they get it funded appropriately. So you guys are well above that threshold and don't have to file a plan.
What would that threshold be?
It is 60%
Okay.
for pension plans. Yeah. Yeah. And
Yes.
I was gonna say, the reduction in percent liability, my memory, just to remind me, it was because that money was invested by this company or the state and had lost that year. We had lost in the market, or they had lost
correct.
like 16% or something lost that year.
So you can see that in the plan net position there from 22 is almost 44 million, went down to 37 million and back up again. So that has a lot to do with the market returns that you're mentioning.
Right. So we can expect another bad year if this market continues.
If it continues, yes. I mean, it all depends on where the market stands on 12/31 of each year.
Yeah.
Yep.
Now, remind me, I mean, we have no control over that at all. I think it was,
No, we get the statement saying this is what your payments are for next year. And then we just have to calculate it out into the different divisions and incorporate that into the budget. MERS sends us the bill.
right, but we have no control over how they invest that money.
No.
You don't have any control over how they invest it or the assumptions they use. So I hear a lot of complaints. MERS continues to reduce their future expected rate of return on investments. It was at 8.5% not too long ago. It's down to under 7% right now. So they keep reducing that. Every time they reduce that, your liability goes up.
Right, and that means that every year that they reduce that, the amount we have to pay goes up dramatically at times. So what are we at? Is it 1.6
This
million?
current year is 2.7 million.
2.7.
Next year, it's gonna be a little over 3. It's
Right,
gonna go up a little over $300,000. And just so everybody understands, this pension This defined pension plan is closed. This is just a past liabilities and stuff. So it's not, a new hire did not get this. It's been closed for many years.
And if I'm not mistaken, isn't that a 3-year average?
I
Or is
thought-
it- Look,
On the, was it
On the
3 or
merge,
5?
so it's like if something happens one year, it's gonna take a while to work through it.
They do what's called smoothing from,
Yeah.
from a contribution standpoint, not what you see here. Our accounting standards require the investments to be marked at fair market value. MERS, to help smooth those big swings in the market, does what you said. I don't remember if it's a 3-year average, but they smooth
Basically,
it so you don't see
even
those
if they have
huge
a good
swings.
year, next year, it's gonna.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
gotta
exactly.
work its way out through.
Yeah, and they do that from a budget perspective. They know how hard it is to budget. And if you have to budget this year for 2 million and next year's 4 million and next year's 2 million, that makes it hard from a budget perspective and to do that. So they do that smoothing methodology.
I believe it's a 5-year smoothing.
That sounds right.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
On the net position to percent of pension liability, how are we doing compared to other counties, say?
Well, they range anywhere. I mean, we have some at 20%, we have some at over 100%. And so most of them are in the 50 to 60 range probably. I don't know if you're aware, the state did a Securing Michigan Pension Fund grant. And basically what that did is anybody under a certain funded threshold got a grant to get them up to that threshold. So you're not going to see anybody at those 20%, 30%, 40% anymore. So unfortunately, you guys were well above that. You didn't get that grant, but that just shows that you've been fiscally responsible to ensure that pension plan is funded. So.
Thanks.
And I think the last time we looked at that, there wasn't a real advantage to paying up on that. I mean.
We've looked at that
we
many times.
We looked at that many times and there didn't seem to be any financial advantage to paying it up early as far as how you
Yeah,
can use that money within the county, paying that off. They weren't offering any discounts or anything to pay that up early, so.
they don't offer anything for that, and all you're doing is giving them more money to invest the way they want, right? So as long as you make your required contribution, which we'll see on the next slide, as long as you make that each year, the plan is considered fully funded because according to the way they calculate it, the funds will be there when somebody wants to draw money. So it's considered fully funded as long as you make those contributions. And you're required under state law to make those contributions. You can't make anything less, you can make more. So there really is no benefit to contribute more other than to say, hey, we got a really well-funded plan. But again, you budget for your required contributions, and you kind of set, if you want to set another investment account up where you have control over and say, okay, this is for MERS and you control the investments that's not in the plan, you could do that as well and not put it in the plan. So it just gives you a little more control over where things are invested and how the results are. Okay. So the next slide is the contributions. So you can see the 5-year trend of where those contributions are. And last year was just under $2.5 million. And 2023 was, looks like 1.7, 1.8. So again, you see those fluctuations from year to year based on how the market's doing and the various assumption changes that MERS makes in the valuation. And the next one is this single audits. This is a smaller document here. This is all the federal awards that were provided to the county and that were expended by the county during the year. So the federal government requires that anytime an entity gets more than $750,000 in federal awards, expends $750,000 in federal awards, they require what's called a single audit. This looks at the compliance. So the federal government says, here's a bucket of money, you can spend it in this method. The federal government wants to know the county complied that you spent the money in that method or that on that project. So that's what this does. Slightly different than the financial statement audit. Just adds a compliance component to it to ensure that you complied with the requirements of the grant agreements. The county expended $24,292,000 in federal awards. The two largest programs, these are the two that we audited during the year, is the community facilities loans and grants. So this is the loan you're getting from the federal government for the jail project. So you expended $20,297,000 on that project this year. And then the second one is a coronavirus state and local fiscal recovery funds. These are your ARPA funds where you spent just over 3 million on that. As of September 30, you had a very small amount left. I want to say 55,000 or something like that, that had to been committed or, had to have a place to go by December 31st, which I think was the plan or did happen, so. And we issued what's called an unmodified opinion on the compliance as well. So it's another clean opinion on the compliance where things were spent in accordance with the grant documents. We did have one finding in a single audit, and that's on the next slide, slide 13. And we consider this to be what's called immaterial non-compliance. So the grant agreement says you need to do this. Yeah, you kind of got there, you kind of didn't get there. So it's not a significant issue, but it is something that we're required to report to the federal government. So each quarter, the ARPA program requires a project expenditure report. And what that does is it says, here's where I spent money this quarter. And here's project to date total that I spent. And so it kind of lays out for the federal government where the money went, which quarter and what project and how it met the criteria. And so part of the audit process, the federal government requires us to look at those quarterly reports and make sure they match your internal records. And there were some discrepancies that we found in those quarterly reports. Not a big deal because all you have to do is correct it on the next quarterly report, which I know Chris is already on top of that to ensure that gets corrected going forward. So not a big issue, but again, as part of the single audit, we're required to report that. The next few pages, as I mentioned early on in the slides, that as part of the audit process, we look at the internal control. So the checks and balances of the county and their financial process to ensure things are running as they should. So the next couple slides are some items that we found that didn't meet the definition for us to be significant or material issues. These are just kind of other matters, what we call other matters. They're suggestions to improve the process to make things a little better and a little smoother and a little stronger checks and balances. So the first one is compensated absences. This is your employee accrued sick and vacation time that they've earned. It's calculated each year by the accounting department, and that there were some new employees that didn't get added to that this year. So we just had Chris add them, redo the calculation, and it was corrected. Capital assets, this is one where, especially that jail project, that's a huge project of things going into capital assets during the year for additions and to make sure the beginning balance, what we look for is a roll forward. So the beginning balance that matches the prior year audit report, anything added, anything taken out, and the ending balance is what's going to match your records this year. And there are some discrepancies within that roll forward that didn't work. And again, those were corrected through the process. Bank reconciliations, we've had this comment for the last several years. And this, again, the bank accounts are being reconciled, so that's not an issue, but there is a mechanism within the accounting software to electronically reconcile those bank statements. And that's what we recommend, is that it gets cleared, all the transactions that go into BS&A get cleared out of BS&A through the reconciliation process. And because the reconciliation is being done outside of BS&A, that's not happening. Again, it's all right, it's done, but just so it'd be easier. We feel it'd be easier and more efficient to do it within the system. So the next one, bank accounts, again, a repeat, and we see this at many counties because of the way they're set up. This Michigan State Department of Treasury requires that all bank accounts in the county's name fall under the control of the treasurer. And at a lot of counties we see, there's a district court that says we don't need to do that. So the district courts get information from the SCAO, I forget the terminology they use. They get what they follow from them. The county has to follow the Department of Treasury rules, and those don't necessarily mesh. So again, we need to follow the Department of Treasury rules when we do the audit, and therefore that's why we report this. Yes, sir.
So this is my 11th year on the board.
Yes.
This is the 11th time I've done this audit.
Yes.
Is there any way of correcting it through the state or talk to legislators or what?
I'm sure you could try. I mean, it'd be great if the state government or state departments would talk to each other, but they just don't. I mean, we see that between Treasury and transportation. We see it between the courts and Treasury, and I mean, it's all over the place. So it's nothing unique, nothing different. And the only way to do it is to go to the legislature and say, get all your departments on one page and require the same type of information.
So this isn't a problem within the county, then it's conflicting state legislation.
From the court's perspective, yes. And like I say, I see it at, I think almost all counties. That, that because the courts are required to follow this set of rules and the county are required to follow this set of rules. So just a disconnect there. Okay. The next one, so there was a new audit standard we had to follow, which required us to look closer at the information technology system of the county. So the computer systems, the softwares that they use and that type of thing. So we have a whole IT department at Raymond, and our IT department talked to your IT department and walked through this to figure out, okay, do you have proper controls in place and that type of thing from a technology security standpoint? You see in the news every day of new issues. There's been different frauds, different scams and stuff like that. So what can you do to protect yourself? So we provide some suggestions to the county of things you can tighten up from a technology security standpoint. And, if the county wishes, we have like I said, group that can help with this to help provide solutions and suggestions of how to do that. So that's that one. The next one, the stale checks, void checks. So the county has a policy of when checks are stale, which means they haven't been cashed for a really long time. The state has an escheatment process that is, I believe your county policy is modeled after. And as we're auditing the audit process, we noted there are not a lot, but several outstanding checks that were really old that really should have been cleaned up. They were all small, so not a big deal. But again, our suggestion is make sure you're following the policy as well as the state requirement for escheating those old checks. GASB 96, so this was a new accounting standard last year, had to do with subscription arrangements, IT subscription arrangements. And what we requested a listing of all those from the county this year, and there were a couple that were inadvertently left off. Brought it back to the county, and Chris added them quickly, and we had it back in place. But this new standard, it's been a complex one for a lot of entities, and we really want to reiterate how important it is to make sure that as a contract comes in the door, it's being assessed and determination made of whether it falls under this category or not, and then to keep a listing of all those that can be audited, right? So we have something to audit when we come to year end. And then the last item is the county's old landfill. They're still required to follow some remediation and monitoring type processes at that landfill, and the county records a liability for that. That liability should be reassessed every so often. So we're just recommending the county takes a look at that to do another reassessment of that liability to make sure it's still on track with what's going on at the landfill. So again, these are all just kind of small items of things that we feel could help improve the process, strengthen the controls. So that's all I had for today. If there's any additional questions or comments, I'm happy to address them.
I got some comments, but not for your audit. It was pretty good. Just for the general. I know and me and Administrator Smith has discussed this a little bit about having a compliance calendar. And maybe quarterly or semi-annually checking that these mentions are brought up. So nothing complicated, but just so we make sure that we don't hit these. Like I said, it doesn't have to be done every meeting, but maybe for something that I've done in some of the other boards that I've seen in itself, just to make sure that we're keeping up with the compliance. Some of them were never, like I said, the one local, we're never probably ever going to get there because there was a difference in the agencies, but found it helpful. Just an idea thrown out there to do that. So and just either completed, not completed, need to bring it up either quarterly or semi. The other comment, as long as I'm again, it starts to take up your little bit of time, but going through the audit and everything, I know there's been some discussion on the Lake Isabella water system in there, so just look at the audit on that to see what it's costing, and we probably need to move a little bit forward on that as far as the money not being in the positive direction, so. Just a couple comments.
That'll be a nice discussion point this afternoon. For goal setting.
I was gonna bring that up, but I just
So,
wanted, in case it
goal
didn't get in there,
setting.
you ran out of there. That was one of them, but it's gonna be pretty open even, but it just, since we're talking about the audit and it's in here, we got it. I just wanted to.
Is there, an intent to move forward with electronic conciliations in BSA as opposed to doing it outside? Or-
With bank reconciliations.
Speak to that.
Yes, please.
So, we have nearly 80 accounts just shy of that. All but one are done with BSNA.
Okay.
Excuse me, all but two. Trial courts, we cannot do.
Right.
BSNA, obviously, we do have a spreadsheet that we reconcile that as well in. And our common account is done in a spreadsheet form rather than in BSNA. All the other bank accounts are reconciled in BSNA.
But just one comment, the common account is the largest one. That's where all the
Yes, it is.
activity
Yeah.
flows through. So that is really the largest account that you have, maybe not dollar amount, but the largest account for transactions.
Mhm. So the answer is no. For the common account.
The common account is not being reconciled in. full in
Right, but,
BSNA.
and there's not a plan to,
Yes, there is a plan.
there is a plan. Okay, that was the question.
Yeah. Right.
We do have to remember that we do have a new administrator. a new
Oh, yeah, no,
finance
well, that's
director.
why I said the
So a
plan,
lot of
right?
stuff
Yes.
It's on the,
They got a little bit, we're rebuilding a lot of stuff this time, so.
right,
And I will mention those several items I went over, a lot of those have already been corrected by Chris, right? And through the audit process, they're already corrected, but it's more of putting a process in place to ensure that they don't get right, and that things like that are caught, so.
thank you.
Any other questions?
Thank you, Chris.
Yeah, I have to say, Chris and Brian did a great job coming in at the end of this and helping us get through the audit. I know it was tough on them and it was a little tough on my group as well, but it all worked out. So appreciate you guys' hard work in getting that done.
Thank you.
All set?
Thank you.
All right,
Yep.
thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks. So up next is appointments to boards and commissions. We have 3 of those. And I'll just go through those, and if anybody wants to comment on those. But A is consider appointing 1 member to the Community Mental Health for Central Michigan Board for a 3-year term ending March 31st, 2028, or until a successor is appointed. And the applicant is James L. Hatton. I've been on this board for 8 years. James Hatton has been on it for 15 years. He is one of the most knowledgeable people on that board. He's got the history and the knowledge. So I'm glad that he is willing to serve again on that. And then the next one, B, is to consider appointing 1 member to the Commission on Aging Advisory Board, District 3, representative to complete a vacated 3-year term ending December 31st, 2026, or until a successor is appointed. And Stacy M. Keipinger is the applicant. I don't know this person. Does have an impressive application. Okay. Item C is consider appointing 1 member to the Community Corrections Advisory Board as a communications media representative for a non-expiring term or until a successor is appointed. And applicant there is also Stacy Keipinger. So 1 applicant for each of those positions, yes.
I was just gonna say, on the previous one for the Commission on Aging Advisory Board, District 3, I'm kind of disappointed. I'm the county commissioner from District 3, that we don't have, and we haven't had for a number of years, a person step forward. And so the appointment's always made outside of the district, which I think Stacy's in District 5, but it's unfortunate District 3 doesn't have somebody step forward and be willing to serve.
Yeah, my district, District 7, didn't have a representative for a long time, and then John Zhang stepped forward to fill that seat finally. Okay, we'll move those to the regular meeting next week. And we'll move right down to committee reports and Finance Committee, Committee of the Whole. And item number 1, you want to walk us through the invoice list?
For all of them, yes, sir.
Administrator Smith?
Yes. First of all, we have the February 14th, 2025 invoice list. Total amount of $158,559.53. Out of that, $49,052.18 goes to the general fund. Some of the ones that were over 5,000 from the general fund was Manor Custodian for January financial services related to some GASB related items, fixed asset related items for the audit that was done. We will see a significant decrease in this usage next year as Finance Director Chris Whitmer will be taking over more of those functions. This was done, she just started early January, so these were kind of done to get things done in a timely manner for the audit. And then we also have the bi-weekly animal control contract with Hats for $5,961.54. And then some solar plan review for drains with Spicer, $38,583 and $15,596.50. Any questions on that one? Okay, see if the next one's in. Next one is February 21st, 2025. Total amount, $2,427,744.65. Out of that, the general funds portion is $28,750.60. The big portions of this one was Cole Stoker and Toski for January legal services and Acrisure for prescription coverage for our insurance plan. The big ones was Gratiot Intermediate, Isabella Intermediate Schools from tax disbursement of $2 million. There's also tax disbursements to Mid-Michigan College, Montcalm Community College, and other taxing entities. Next one we have is February 28th, 2025. Total amount $246,941.62. Out of this one, $176,688.89 was general fund. The big ones on this was equalization services. We had MRP Properties for the leasing of the buildings for staff, Acrisure for dental and vision expense for March, and $75,160.75 to Michigan Municipal Risk Management for our quarterly insurance payment. Next up, March 7th, 2025, total amount $1,680,375.61. Out of that is the general fund portion of $101,592.62. Big portion of this right here would be from Clark Construction for correctional facility charges, State of Michigan, Court Transmittal. We have Dell, we have Verizon for monthly computer and wireless charges. We also have some big tax disbursements, $513,180.49 to Gratiot Intermediate School, and all the other taxing entities that go up as well. Next up, we have the first the approval of the adjustments list. All these were done on the January 31st, you'll see, were added to avoid late fees. We did have one where there was an invoice that was done incorrectly. We reduced the payment by $520 as we only pay for 2 licenses. So that one was redone. On the February 7th, they were all invoices added to avoid late fees. And then on the back, you'll see the direct deposits and the employer related expenses. And the second adjustment list is February 27th, 2025. This one you'll see on the front page. All of them are payments made early to avoid late fees or for early payment discounts.
Questions on those? All right, we'll move that forward. And item number 2 is consider approving the applications from Jason Moore, Frank Engler, and Charity Sweet to be seated on the Heartland Material Management Planning Committee.
Morning.
Morning.
This is just the next step in the materials management planning process is to approve these individuals that meet the requirements within that plan to have a seat on the committee. Once we have this approved, we can move forward with a work plan that we can submit to Eagle, and then we'll be eligible for some of the funding. We did have a deadline of March 2nd to have this committee seated and have a work plan submitted to Eagle. Unfortunately, we didn't meet that deadline. It's, when you're working with 8 counties, it's kind of hard with everybody's approval process and everything to get everybody together at the same time. So we submitted a request to extend that deadline, and Eagle granted that. And we now have a June 1st deadline to have that work plan submitted. Once we have this committee approved, we hold monthly meetings and we travel around to each county. Each county takes turns hosting that meeting. And on our April meeting, we have in Clare County, we're gonna do like a meet and greet where we're gonna invite all of the Board of Commissioners from the surrounding counties, their CAAs, and all of the committee members will be present, so that way all of you can meet all the individuals that are gonna be seated at that committee. And at that time, we're also gonna go over a little questions and answers, and maybe give some updates as far as where we're at in the planning process and for the funding.
Sounds interesting.
Yeah, it's been a process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the date for that? Do you know?
The date for that's gonna be April 25th, and we'll send out the invites to all of you. Because Clare County has asked us to RSVP by the end of next week. That way they know how many people are gonna be in attendance, so that way they can accommodate for the size. So.
Some of the delays we've, with some of the interpretations of the new law. Let's just say, how do I say this kindly, that some of the impression that we were told was changed, and so there was a minor revolt. We're actually ahead of a lot of the counties. We're the largest multi-county unit, so yeah, so there was a while where it got pretty heated because what we were promised is not what was going to happen, and we couldn't do it for what Eagle. They come back a little bit. So we're kind of moving forward with that. So that was part of the delay that was coming in there. And the other thing is we just didn't have a lot of direction coming from the state. So unfortunately, we were moving ahead faster than the state was on this because the material management plan is still being interpreted yet. So, which is kind of crazy, but it's the way it works. So, so I give Jake and Charity a lot of credit for the work they've done. They put a lot of time and effort. They're doing the majority of the work for the counties involved, and they're actually, most of the counties are looking for their leadership. So, thank you.
Yes.
Did you say the June 1st? You need to get all the approvals of representation, but not the plan.
Yeah, so that's when we need to submit the plan by. So the committee will be formed once, if these individuals are approved. I believe Isabella County is the last one. We were holding out to make sure that we had all categories covered within that plan. All these individuals that filled out an application aren't just, you can't just seat anybody on this committee. You have to meet the requirements. I signed up to be a MRF operator. Jason Moore through the city as a anaerobic digester operator, and then Frank as a elected official. But the June 1st deadline, we have to have our work plan submitted by then. So what we're trying to work around, 8 counties have to pull together their own financial end of things so that we can submit that into the work plan. And working with 8 counties, like I said, it's hard to come up with a budget for 8 counties all at the same time. And that's what we're trying to work
So,
around.
but you're not talking about the material management plan overall?
No,
just a-
no, this is just a
starting point.
plan. Yeah, this
Okay.
is just the work
Okay.
plan, like this, a timeline of what we're trying to accomplish. When we're gonna go out for an RFP for another firm to write the plan, for the CAAs to approve the plan, and, you know, just to follow the rest of the process through that.
One of my arguments I've had and discussed with various lights is with some of the other commissioners of some of the other counties is that they require us to spend all this money on this bureaucracy and stuff, and there's only one pot in there, and the more money we spend doing all this paperwork is less money we can actually spend on the projects within the county. So it's like, you get a little frustrated because they ask you for something and then they want more. And it really doesn't make sense because of the bureaucracy, but that money, you know, we could be using it more efficiently for actual programs that we could put, either it's recycling, composting, and the way it's set up where every county has control of a certain percentage of the population that goes directly to the individual counties to spend where they want it. So if it's education, whatever. So it's a little frustrating when they keep changing the rules and asking you to do more, and it's time is money, and it just takes away from what we actually trying to do. So.
And that's kind of why we got set back from that deadline, was because they keep coming back and changing the rules of the game when we're right in the middle of it. So we're trying to do the best that we can.
But to keep some other counties and boards of commissioners all online, it's tricky.
That's kind of why we're trying to do this special meeting in April to pull everybody together. And with some of the new commissioners that have come on board in the middle of all this, it's a chance for them to be able to catch up, because we've had some of the new commissioners from the surrounding counties reach out to us and ask us questions. And that's when we decided that, you know, maybe it wouldn't be a bad idea to get everybody together in the same room and do this. So.
And the material management plan is mandated in the state, so it's.
Yeah.
Required to do.
Yeah. Unfortunately, even pushing up that deadline didn't change the deadline that we have to have the materials management plans turned in, so.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
And item number 3 would be consider approving prime contract change order number 34 with Clark Construction in the net amount of $16,346, and authorize the board chairperson to sign the same. And we have Heidi online with us.
Good morning.
Take it away. Good morning.
PCCO number 34, total cost of this one is $16,346. We currently have in buyout of $323,663 remaining. We have not touched contingency at this point, and so the total remaining, excuse me, is $1,105,437. We are 100% complete, and we are about 50% of the funds used to date. First item on the change order is PCO number 137. This one here was we had reworked some electrical outlets in the housing area, eliminated some stools, and with that change of TVs and power for the phones and charging stations, we had a change of a credit of $4,871 from Pauley Jail for the table and the stools. And then Master for doing some rework of the electrical was an add of $21,725 for $16,854 from buyout. Next item is PCO number 217. This one here is some back charges for Strauss Masonry. We had to do some scraping of some walls, added some plates where walls didn't go to the deck. And then the painter had to come back in and paint some of those things there. These were kind of punch list, were completion items here that where the cost came in. There's no cost to the project. Like I said, this goes to Strauss Masonry of a deduct of $1,959. Next item on the list is PCO number 235. This one here, we noticed that they're around the skylights and the soffits. There was some cracking in the drywall. To patch that, the drywall contractor, William Reichenbach, came out, patched it, and we had to repaint that. So the cost for repainting that was $248 back to the contractor, William Reichenbach. Next item was down our PCO number 242. This one here, some occupancy sensors were requested to be removed. We had to do some patching here, and that was a cost for the drywall to be patched of $296 taken from buyout. Next item was 244. This one here is also a back charge. The masonry walls, which is on another PCO, and the toilets were not put in per code requirements for spacing. So we had to move some toilets and those masonry privacy walls. So William E. Walter incurred some costs for doing this of $3,221 for some Strauss masonry repairs, for some cleaning, caulking, and painting. And then also some flooring for epoxy. Next item on the list is PCO number 248. This one here was for a damaged monitor while the contractor was moving some ceiling tiles. And that cost was a back charge to the contractor from Pauley Jail to William Reichenbach to replace that monitor. Next item is PCO number 251. This one here was for we had to, in the break room, it was required that over the range hood was to be installed. We had to provide some power there. And so there's some cost for master and electric to provide the power, and Konowinski, after they installed it, to take it down, reinstall it. That cost was $607 back to from buyout. Next item is PCO number 253. This one here is also some back charges, at some of the costs. So we had some thermostat covers that we needed to put in detention areas, and then also caulk some holes where the fire alarm devices were removed, those cages. That was from buyout of $347. And then we had back to CJ's for when they were doing the epoxy caulk in the cells where they come in contact with the concrete floor. They had touched the beds and everything like that. So with the epoxy, which was a dark gray. And so we had the painter touch up the paint on that. So that was a back charge to CJ for that painting of $1,049. Strauss had a back charge of $165 for some caulking where we had some stress cracks. Next item is PCO number 255. This one here, as I mentioned, was for the masonry wall that we had to move for clearances for code. That cost was then absorbed by Strauss. Oh wait, no, that's not the Strauss one. I'm sorry. This one here was for at the stairs in the housing. We had to adjust some clearances for headroom in order for to meet code. Going up the stairs during design, the stairs came out a little longer than anticipated. So when you're going up, you're going to hit your head on the bulkhead there. And so we had to do some rework in there, and that was here for, refixing that area and adjusting the head height. So that cost here was actually, no, which one was this for? Ceiling tile welding, drywall. Oh, this was a painter. I'm sorry, I got this one mixed up. 255 was for some back charging of contractors for some drywall repair, electrical for some painting that needed to be done. These were all like in areas that were finished. They went back through and fixed them. So that was back charges off with the contractors. My fault. Got this one mixed up with another one. PCO number 256 here. This one was deducting the remaining allowances from trade contractors. William Walter had a credit of $11,712. Master a credit of $260. Konowinski a credit of $4,179. And Flooring had a credit of $2,756. And then Murray Painting had a credit of $2,852, which was credited back to buyout of $21,759. Then PCO number 261. This one here was a request of the local fire marshal to add 3 additional fire alarm devices in Area A when we were doing inspections. That cost was $5,185 to add those in. Next item is PCO number 263. This one was a request by the state fire marshal in the inmate storage room. Because the room was over 150 square feet, we had to create the wall that was adjoining other areas in the Area B and make it a 1 hour rated wall. So we had to do some fire stopping, and we had to add a shaft wall here where we had joists. And that cost was $12,987 that came out of a buyout for a new door, which was a 1 hour rated door, and for that fire stopping and shaft wall. Next item was PCO number 264. We had to add 208 power at the booking area for a sealing machine for the sheriff. This was at a buyout of $1,113. Next item on the list is $265 PCO number. This was where this is where the credit was back to Strauss for the masonry wall mishap. This one was $5,025 to move the masonry walls, for do some cleaning, patching the epoxy floors, and painting. No cost to the project. Next item was PCO number 266. This was for some revised stencils in Area B. There was some miscommunication on my end with the contractor. So this was a cost of $460 to revise those stencils for labeling the doors. And the last item here on the list is PCO number 267. This one here was for caulking some access panels. It was hard to determine how many access panels we will have on a project. Lesson learned here was to have a allowance for this extra caulk that we need for security sealants. So we had a scope gap for the contractor, which this was a cost of $256 for them to do some caulking or some access panels for security. So the total cost on this PCO number 34 was $16,346. Are there any questions? And this was a long one.
Questions for Heidi?
Yes, sir. So now that the building is occupied, we have our guest house there. Where are you located now?
I am sitting in an office with the sheriff right now, helping them troubleshoot some items right when now that they're moved in.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Thank you. Heidi.
Thank you. Have a good afternoon.
You too. Okay, item number 4, consider approving the contract between Isabella County Parks Commission and Isabella Corporation for renovations to the campground bathhouse at Herrick Recreation Area in amount not to exceed $393,000, and authorize the board chairperson to sign the same. And we have Park Director Hanson here.
Hi.
Run us through this. Hi.
Yeah, so this is the project that is our Spark grant from the DNR. Just for the new commissioners and those who are here from the public, the Spark grant is ARPA dollars that were made available to the DNR to distribute through their own grant application process. And this has been several years in the making. We applied for those Spark grant funds. Initially did not get awarded them, went through a second round of application and received those funds. So we applied for the second round back in 2022. We were awarded the funds in 2023 and then got under project agreement with the DNR in 2024, which is when we went out to bid and started working with an engineer. So I just wanted to give that context that this has been a multi-year planning process, and now this contract that's being presented here is sort of the final piece of the puzzle to get us going to where we would actually begin construction immediately following Labor Day of this summer. So just that was a little background on this. I also want to point out the contract amount with the Isabella Corporation is $393,000. Our Spark grant award is $319,000. So when we look at the total project budget, the Parks Funds portion of the budget is 24.91% of the total budget. And that is coming out of the Parks Fund. This money is in no way connected to the general fund, as most of you know. So we've been working with the engineer. Initially, this project was going to be larger in scope, but the estimates came back way beyond what we had received in the Spark grant award. So we had several meetings with the DNR to find out what our options were. And they did finally approve for us to scale back the scope of the project with the requirement that as we scaled back, we had to retain some of the ADA update pieces of the project because that is a priority for the DNR. So the project that we're looking at now includes in our existing bathhouse at Herrick, it's a renovation that takes one of the stalls in the female bathroom and one of the stalls in the male bathroom and brings those up to current ADA standard. And then it takes one of the showers, which the shower stalls are all private individual showers. And it takes one of the shower stalls, brings it up to current ADA standard, replacing the roof. It is a block building, but there's an alcove section that has siding. So we'll replace the siding in that alcove section. And then we will create an ADA accessible parking space with a pathway that connects to the building. And that is basically us scaling back from what we originally applied for to the most utilitarian we could get on this project was still having the value there to do the project. So I don't want to just keep throwing a ton at you. I would be happy to field any questions. I did want to note that Isabella Corp will be the general contractor, and they've indicated that Denali Construction would be the one subcontractor that we would be working with. And we will still have our engineer and architect from Johnson Hill on board with us as we complete the construction project process. I know a question was asked, and this actually was asked in regards to the next bullet point, but I'll take the opportunity now to answer the question about Herrick Recreation Area. So I've been working on a lot of statistical data for the parks because I'm going to start this winter working on a formalized cost recovery plan for our campgrounds. So I'm collecting data for that. And Herrick Recreation Area specifically secures approximately 5,000 occupied nights per season. So that's, if there's somebody on a site over the season, we've estimated that around 5,000. The general, just the specifically camping revenue average over the past 5 years, which would be campsite revenue only, is $118,060. If we look at the total revenue from Herrick for the 2024 season, which includes campsites, permits, pavilion rentals, and firewood, for 2024, it was $164,103.28. So I just wanted to address that question because that was asked, and you'll see from this and then our next point of business that I'll talk about. Herrick Recreation Area is an incredible campground that has huge potential, but this bathhouse was built in 1986, so that's going on what, 30 years with no renovations. And then the cabins that we'll talk about too, those haven't had improvements on a large scale since the 90s. So we're trying to make smart investments in the park where we can bring outside dollars in, leverage our Parks Fund dollars with grant opportunities, and make these investments that improve the facilities and allow us to continue to generate revenue from this campground. So any questions?
Oh, I always gotta say something. Go through this correct me if I'm wrong on this, but once you have to go back to the grant provider, they don't always have to accept the secondary, but if we did not make their minimum requirements, then the grant could be, they could not approve it, even though they approved the earlier one, because we had to go back and change the original agreement.
Yeah, I mean, we had to formally request permission to change the scope, and actually probably at some point you as a board will see an updated project agreement that I'll have to bring to you. But they made it very clear, especially because this has that extra layer of ARPA requirements. You know, we're pretty much at the low end of what we could scale out of this. Does that answer what you were trying to?
Yeah, and it
ask?
basically is, you never count your chickens before they hatch, if you don't, because until you actually get the grant money, it could change on you, so.
Yeah,
We've done Murph and everything, they, sometimes they change the requirements, but until you actually get the money, they could change the rules on it because they are providing money to you, so. So that was my impression, that if we didn't make these changes, if they required that it would not get any of the money, so.
yeah, if we don't do the project as it's currently designed, which I sort of just outlined, then they've made it quite clear that this is not a project they're interested in funding. So we have to do those ADA, and really all we're doing is the ADA updates, ADA parking space and pathways, and then replacing the roof so that we have, you know, a roof that's not from 1986 anymore, and then replacing some dated siding in an alcove section. Originally, just to give a bit of context, we were also going to try to redo the campground playground and vault toilet. But again, we completely took those pieces out of the project to try to be as close to the grant awarded amount as possible. So
We could have done those projects, but it would have come out of the county or your.
it would have come from the Parks Fund, yes.
Yes, which is more than we need to spend for you. to spend.
And yeah, and I didn't mention, but this has been also vetted by the Parks Commission. I've presented this project to them throughout the whole process, but most recently, the information that's in this staff report was unanimously supported by the Parks Commission as well. So they're aware of all the details of this project.
So I was hired as Parks and Recreation Director for the county in 1985, and that was my first project for the county. So it was under construction in 85. That was well before ADA. And so it is an aged building, 40 years old, that needs to have an update. It's a good project.
Is that a shingle roof on that building?
Yeah, and we are looking at doing a shingle roof. We wanted to do metal, but again, with the budget for the project, we're trying to look at alternative materials wherever we can to save money and still get a lifespan out of it.
So it's still very worthy project and bringing it up to 88 standards, you know, bring in that group of people and make it an accommodation. And we're doing it for, you know, a quarter of the price. It's unfortunate, of, you know, the plans for the park upgrades. I don't know if we still have metal slide.
Yes, this playground the playground that's within the campground side of the park, it's not up to, like, it wouldn't pass a current inspection. It's got metal slides. It's very outdated. I think the swing structures too are not up to current expectations, but You know, those are things we can go for other grant opportunities for, we can work towards in the future. I will say also, the largest negative feedback we hear about Herrick is like, oh, it was a great experience, we loved it, but man, that bathhouse sketchy. So, some smaller improvements that'll give that further impact is, new energy efficient lighting. We need to replace the doors. It's metal doors out there. They're rusted and warped. And it's just not, the building is not efficient. It's not up to the standard that we want to operate at. And it's also something that could make people not want to come camp there anymore. So like I said, when we're talking about cost recovery and bringing in revenue, we need to make this investment.
Just the lighting will help. I mean, when you go in that building, it's kind of dark. It's a little,
Yeah, it's not a great vibe.
no. No, that'll help tremendously. And the playground at the day use was redone, what, 2 years ago? or
Finished that, was it 2 years ago already?
I don't know, last year maybe.
I think we finished it last year.
Okay.
That was where the ribbon cutting was. Is
That was where the ribbon cutting. And again, that was, you know, we're trying to pull in grants for this. We had 2% funding and game time grants for that as well. So we want to make wise investments in these parks and campgrounds, but we're trying to leverage grant dollars wherever we can.
Okay, any questions on that item? Hearing none, we'll move that forward to next week's regular meeting. And item 5 is consider approving resolution number 2025-01, authorizing the submittal of a recreation passport grant application to support the Herrick Recreation Area Cabins Improvement Project and authorize the board chairperson to sign the same.
So this is at this point, the DNR requires a resolution, a formal resolution from the board to even apply for these grants. So this is just us asking for that, basically permission from the board to submit a grant. What this grant is looking at doing, so there's 5 existing cabins at Herrick Recreation Area. This grant application is funding renovations to the existing 5 cabins. Including making one of the 5 cabins ADA accessible. So similar things to what we talked about with the bathhouse, we would add an ADA parking space and pathway up to the building itself. And then we'll make renovations that are desperately needed to the roof, the siding, again, energy efficient lighting, replacing the windows, and just bring these cabins up to modern day standards and to a product that is marketable for our campground to continue to be full and popular. Something I always want to mention with the Recreation Passport Grant specifically is that this is a really great opportunity to bring dollars into our community because the Recreation Passport is not funded in any way by taxpayer money. This is the tab that you opt into to purchase to put on your vehicle registration. And so then it's shared out with local communities. So it's a way for us to bring in funds that are in no way supported by taxpayer money. And then we are required to match at 25%, but it's a really good leverage for dollars for us.
I have a question. Wasn't that just for state parks before or something like that? Or was it always available to?
I don't know the full history on it, but I do know that it's for at least a few decades now been available to community parks.
Cool.
It's for both. The
Both?
state gets a portion of it and then a portion comes down to local units.
That's great. Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you. And move on to item 6, consider approving the agreement between the Isabella County Trial Court and the Government Employees Labor Council and authorize the board chairperson to sign the same. And Administrator Smith, you want to
Sure.
run us through this
I'll
one?
read off the background. The Isabella County Board of Commissioners has a fiduciary responsibility for all county operating departments, whether managed by an elected official or appointed. The Government Employee Labor Council has reached an agreement with Isabella County Trial Court for a 3-year contract effective January 1, 2025 to December 31st, 2027. Fiduciary approval of this contract by the Isabella County Board of Commissioners is needed to authorize the county administrator controller to adjust the pay grids, increase salary and wages, and adjust other related financial components. The pay grid and salaries will be increased by 2.5% effective March 22nd, 2025 with no retro pay. And I want to make sure I stress the no retro pay. This is kind of a unique situation where they did not demand retro pay on this. So basically they're getting the 6 months at 2.5%, the remaining 6 months of this fiscal year.
Right, because their wage reopener expired.
Well, this was the new contract. This is a completely
Oh,
new contract.
completely new
Yep.
contract. Okay,
And then a part of this, there'll be a wage reopener every year, but they've already reached the agreement with the trial court on this. So this is just basically allowing administration to recognize that contract and adjust and the various financial components to honor that contract.
any questions on that? All right, we'll move that item forward, and item 6 is consider approving the agreement between seven, sorry. Consider approving the 2.5% COLA increase for non-represented employees effective March 22nd, 2025, and no retro pay, and approve the attached budget amendments and authorize a board chairperson to sign the same.
So I will just read the background here. The Isabella County Board of Commissioners has historically tried to keep the non-represented employees of our county on par or close to what other union groups have received in the county. To maintain this pay equity, the pay grids and salaries would need to be increased by 2.5%. Again, effective March 22nd, 2025 with no retro pay. And I have attached budget amendments on the ones that are necessary for the general fund. And the total comes out of the transfer out capital improvement. There'd be a decrease in expenditures of $55,979.50. And that money will be divided amongst all the general fund departments, salaries, wages, PTO payouts, workers' compensation, FICA, and retirement. There is no increase to the overall general fund expenditure budget.
Yes.
I just think it's fair. I mean, we're looking at probably inflation at 3% or so. And if we're going to do that for our labor represented unions, I think we need to do it across the board. I know we've gone through years of revolving door of losing people and having a difficult time attracting new people. And I don't think we want to get any further behind the 8 ball in that regard. So I think this is a fair way to move forward until we can look at the wage study.
Any other comments? I agree, 100%. That's fair. Okay, we'll move that item to next week's regular meeting. And item 8, review and assess the semi-annual 2% application for the Isabella County Commission on Aging, requesting $587,196 for programs and services.
Good morning. So the Commission on Aging has been so fortunate to the generosity of the Saginaw Chippewa Indian Tribe. Since 1995, we received like almost $10.5 million, and they have supported us annually through their 2% process. Years ago, an agreement was made with Commission on Aging and the tribe that we submit the same 2% application in the spring, and we submit it again in the fall. And then anything we receive between those two disbursements, if we're fortunate enough to receive something, it's combined, and then we do spend that money within that fiscal year. So this application, which is representative of all the programs here at Commission on Aging, it is not for a thing. Like, we don't ask for an item from them. It is to support the general programs and services of Commission on Aging. Nothing goes to our administrative, it goes to direct services here. And this application is worked on by all of our managers here. So it is a collective effort, and so we're asking for your support and moving this forward.
One thing I'd like to point out on this application under overview, especially for the new commissioners, you'll see applicant project priority. This is listed as critical, and I would agree with that. That this would be a critical request for this.
Okay. 10.5 million in the last 20 years. The tribe has contributed to our Commission on Aging. So, very grateful for that. And we'll move that item to next week's meeting. And item number 9 is review and assess the semi-annual 2% application for from the Isabella County Trial Court requesting $52,065 for the Adult Recovery Court Program. And,
Gary is on. She's muted right now. I don't know if she. Oh, there she is.
We're here. I think Kate is the one who is behind this this proposal, so I'm thinking she's gonna jump on and go through it.
Good morning. I'm Kate Mitchell. I'm the coordinator for the Recovery Court Program. This 2% grant, we're requesting $52,065. It would benefit the Recovery Court Program as well as District Court Probation. We're asking for money to help pay for drug testing, both at Compass, which is the local drug testing agency, as well as some boxes of tests that we can use here at the court to do testing here. We're requesting money for transportation. This would be for bus tickets for probationers to use to get to probation and different probation requirements. It could also help fund some not bus tickets, gas cards for individuals that do have a license but need to get to counseling or AA or wherever it is they need to go. We're asking for some money for treatment costs. For our program, people are required to participate in counseling. Most have insurance, some do not. This would help cover the cost of counseling fees if they don't have money. It would also help pay for if somebody has insurance, but they have a pretty large copay. We can help pay their copays so that we know they're getting to their counseling appointments. It would help pay for some incentives, which is recommended by the National Drug Court Institute. Things like cards to Meijer if somebody's doing really well to help pay for some groceries, maybe movie tickets, some pro-social activities that they can do. It would also help pay for our National Recovery Month picnic. We've had 3 so far and we've had really good turnouts and we've had a lot of positive feedback from those. So it's something we would love to continue to do. And I know some of the commissioners have come to a couple of those picnics and I think it kind of helped open their eyes as to what we're doing with the probationers and with the drug court participants. And then it would also help with training. For our drug court program, we're required to attend the annual MAT-CP conference. It's required to attend through our grant through the state. It's $500 a person that they require us to do, but then they don't always give us enough money in our state grant to pay for that. So this would help pay for that as well. So it's kind of spread out over a number of things through our program and through district court probation.
Thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Any questions?
One thing I'd like to say before we go further, when I was on the 2% program, it appears that there's 3 different parts of the county that have not put in their project update from previous years, and that is now a requirement by the tribe. So you have to go in and fill out a project status or project report for past monies received. So if you received money, please get this filled out as soon as you can and put it in the system, because we cannot submit any grants until those 3 are filled out. So I'm just kind of saying this generically to everybody. So please do, otherwise I will have to, and I won't be very happy if I have to. So just an FYI, thank you.
Absolutely, thank you.
And again, I'm not sure who they are at this point, so I'm just generically saying it to everybody. I just happened to say it after you, so I apologize, Kate.
It's okay.
Just a real quick comment, I know. Going through the criminal justice committee and stuff, that the cost of testing, it's just like everything else, it just really increased. And it's integral part of the program, you gotta test, but the costs have really increased ever since the year I've been on there. So I know it's expensive, but it's you don't have the testing, you really, it's integral part of the program, so. Every year we talk about the cost going up, and I think I asked the question, well, let's go with the testing, and it's like, can't we find something cheaper, but it's not. It is what it is, so. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, we'll move that item on. And item 10 is review and assess the semi-annual 2% application from the 911 Emergency Management Department, requesting $314,000 for a backup dispatch center radio console. Director Geddes.
Morning. So this is a 2% request for our backup radio console. It's end of life. We currently have one position that is down at this point. We can't get parts for it. So this is a request to fund that backup radio console so we can talk to our first responders.
How old is that piece of equipment?
I believe it's 12 years old right now, so. And it's a backup, so it's not as robust as what we currently use at the MC 7500 console. So it's not to that standard, but it is our backup, so.
We'll need a backup.
Yeah, it's a backup.
Yeah.
Hopefully we never have to use it.
Right.
But it is failing and we need to look at replacing that, so.
Good.
That's the reason for the grant
Okay.
request.
Any questions?
Sounds pretty critical.
Yeah.
Say backup, but
Yeah,
important backup.
absolutely, 100%.
Okay, we'll move that to next week's meeting, and item 11 is review and assess the semi-annual 2% application for the 911 Emergency Management Department, requesting $53,305 for a command control vehicle.
So this request is through my deal with the state for a command and control vehicle for my department, both emergency management and 911, to go onto a scene and control and the communication aspect of that scene. For example, if we go out to a hazmat scene, we can manage a radio communication so the responders don't have to worry about that. They can worry about the scene. We can manage the radio transmissions back and forth between the responders. This vehicle would be outdated with 800 megahertz radios, which we currently use. So therefore, any one of my staff can go out, take this vehicle out, manage the scene on the radio side of things. So the responders can worry about the actual incident instead of worrying about radio communication back and forth. So
I'm gonna ask a question that I'm gonna get asked. Could you use a police cruiser for that?
it's any vehicle at this point, yes.
Yeah.
So
I think we've got a few of them laying around. We could probably outfit. I'm just spitballing, but so.
yeah, it's a vehicle
Yeah.
that we would have access to at my department to go anywhere, so.
Sure, gotcha.
Okay. Any other questions?
So if we can use a police vehicle, is there something that we can move forward with without having to go for 2%?
Well, you need the vehicle and then you need equipment for it, I imagine, right?
Yeah, the radios obviously to communicate back and forth between dispatch, status boards, kind of that kind of stuff, like whiteboards and stuff like that to help manage the scene. Again, like Commissioner Weber was saying, would a patrol vehicle work? Yeah, I mean, but I can outfit one of those just as easy.
Sure, right.
This is just specifically used for my department.
Yes, gotcha.
So
Is this also used for towing, like trailers and everything else? Would you need that towing capability?
yes, we have a trailer for our CERT team that we pull out. For example, we use our CERT members for Maple Syrup Festival for road, road closures during their parades and stuff like that. So they have equipment that they need to take. So yeah, we do have a trailer for that kind of stuff, or search and rescue and that kind of stuff. So
Okay. So just a question, with those old SUVs
Sure.
work as a trailer capacity as well?
Mhm.
Oh, I
Plus,
guess,
we'd have to pay for outfitting.
Sheriff Maine has a question.
Hi, sorry, could be there in person today. Just listen to the conversation. So the commissioners understand that the vehicles that we will be liquidating, which were in normal rotation, we've had lots of mechanical issues with these vehicles. So I'm just putting that out there that they have been costly to repair. They are, unfortunately, I think a COVID round of vehicles, and they have not lasted or held up very well. So just want to make sure the commissioners were aware of that as this conversation goes on.
Right, and in my mind, it's a 2% application. So why not get a new vehicle that you know is gonna last several years?
One thing I did notice on this though is that when we talk about different rankings and stuff, Director Geddes did have this as a medium, so he's throwing it in there. He's, saying it's high right now, but if it can get funded, great, so it's kind of like one of those where his previous one was, he has labeled as high, and I would almost say that that's probably borderline critical. So,
Yeah.
it's just all kind of that internal ranking system.
But this could be considered critical if you have the need for it all of a sudden, if you have a major event where you need this.
And the tribe may feel that there's a huge need for it as well,
Mhm.
so it's.
Okay. All right.
Thank you. Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you. We'll move this forward. And item 12 is review and assess the semi-annual 2% application from the Isabella County Material Recovery Facility requesting $132,256.57 for a new roll-off truck.
Yeah, so we currently have 3 roll-off trucks in our fleet, one of which is the oldest truck that we have, and it is a 1999.
Wow.
Yeah, so I mean, the truck has been really reliable over the years. We've been able to obtain parts for it, keep it on the road. All the trucks have to pass a yearly DOT inspection in order for us to run those trucks. With this unit, it is getting harder, taking into consideration the age of the vehicle, it is getting harder to obtain the parts to be able to maintain. And with the degradation, running it on salted roads through the winter time, rust that's created underneath the trucks, and it's just getting to the point where the cost to repair that truck doesn't match up with what we should be doing. So it would be worth it for us moving forward to replace that truck. And due to the trade value being so low, what we're recommending is that we purchase a truck outright and then sell the 99 as is at auction. We reached out to 3 local companies and got 3 different quotes, one of which came in at the lowest bid of the $132,000 from Wheeland Sales. We've had a great working relationship with them in the past. They've always taken care of all the warranty work. Their shop is not very far from where we're at. So for us to take it in for service, we don't have to travel far, therefore costing us manpower dollars to transport it back and forth. So that is our recommendation.
Any questions?
Are all 3 roll-ups, how often are they on the road? Is it weekly?
Yeah, they're on the road weekly. That 3rd unit, maybe not as much as the other 2, but unfortunately, we've experienced some major engine issues with it, as well as some other things that have come up. So we have had to park it, and we're trying to work around it for right now, but we're getting to the point where we really need to put that unit back on the road.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. And item number 13 is review and assess the semi-annual 2% application from the Isabella County Drain Commission requesting $275,000 for the Wademan Mill Pond Dam repair and lake level order update. Mr. Willoughby.
Hello, everybody. We'll start right off with the, I don't know if everybody here remembers, but in 1986, the dam in Wademan washed completely out, gone. And then sat there for what, 10, 15 years or so, 12, 13, somewhere in there. Anyway, well, they must, I don't know the entire exact of it, but apparently between the road commission and the tribe, they put that dam back in. I don't know, the tribe paid for most of it. And because normally, you know, that would be a lake level and have an assessment district and a, you know, assessment boundary and everything. Because of the fact that the tribal and whoever paid for the whole thing, it's never been established. Don't have a role for it. Don't have an assessment district. And the berm to the east side has now got some leaks and little things that I have to have it inspected every 3 years, and it's been showing up and getting worse. So we've got to, you know, we've got to address that. And they've got an estimate on how much, you know, the entire project's going to cost. But we need to get that a role, and we need a place to start because we need a role and an assessment district. So then we can, you know, do a cost analysis and figure out what it's going to cost the people. And like I say, right now, we don't know. It's all guesswork. So that's what and we're requesting 225 for engineering and 50, I believe, for the legal services. Which with the engineering, you'll get, you know, the entire project, you know, to the scope. It'll be ready to bid out, you know, if we can get a grant.
What's the process to get that?
Process to what?
To get that district registered?
Well,
is that
I've never done one before. It's not a drain. It's a lake level thing. It's basically very similar. You understand how a drainage district.
Yep.
Everybody has, you know,
benefit of
everybody, first of all, you have to determine the actual boundary of what benefits from it. And then you've got to determine the percentage of yours and the percentage of yours and, you know, every person's.
But who has the authority? Is drain commissioner because that's water, or who actually, after you do all the assessment, find out who actually?
Well, I think it got added on
to the state.
It got added on to your, you know, because of lake level. A lot of our drain commissioners, that's half of their job is lake level. Like Clare County's got like 40-some lake levels. I only have 3. But that's, and then they've got, I'm not familiar with it because all I've ever worked with is drains.
Probably has to go through public comment.
Huh?
Probably has to go through like what, public comment?
Well, I'll have to have a Dave review everything.
Yeah, okay.
Just like a drain project.
Didn't we have this lady who was a consultant on some of these things? Well, lake levels for sure, but would that same consultant be able to help on establishing the role and assessments?
Oh, yeah. Fahey Schultz does
yeah.
all that, and then Spicer's gonna be the engineer. They're the ones that inspect it, so.
So, right now, you have the lake level, so it is somewhat in the.
Well, that's the other thing is it was engineered and everybody knows what it looks like. The lake level is never gonna change because of their dam, you know, that established the lake level. But it's legally not established. It's never even been.
What kind of a
through the-
hazard would it be for downstream residences or businesses if they
Well, that's
fail?
one other thing we don't know, other than the that would be part of the engineering, you know, you know, I would like to think it wouldn't, if it did fail, it wouldn't be a huge impact downstream. But like I say, we don't have a report on that.
The only other question I'd have is, the value of that impoundment to the public or to the property owners. I don't remember, it's been a while since I visited that area, but I don't think there's a lot of residential property around it, is there?
Oh, yeah.
There is?
Yes.
So
Yeah, there's a lot of,
assessment district, I mean, if this project could be $1 million, is that something they would be able to?
well, that's because we don't have an accurate boundary or an assessment roll. We really don't know. That's one thing I look into on a drain project is how much it's gonna cost each person, and we really don't even know that yet.
We don't even know what our
We can
liability,
guess, but
liability would be on that, because it's not official thing, so is the county on the hook if it, it failed, and yeah, so there's a lot of unknowns in this project, so we need to kind of get it straightened out, but yeah, so as if it's not legally a district and it fails, whose responsibility is it?
Right. Well,
I mean, now we're talking about lawyers, but anyways, yeah, we need to get it cleaned up, get it straightened up. Get started off. It's gonna be off.
I've got a little staff report here. See if I missed anything.
I would think that would be a more critical process. Maybe it's-
So. Is that a pretty shallow lake or impoundment?
The old channel is basically there. It's, but yeah, most of it's.
An ice fish on there yet?
Well, just like checking it out.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. We'll move that on to next week's meeting for consideration, and item 14 is review and assess the semi-annual 2% application from the Isabella County Sheriff's Office requesting $100,000 for a full body scanner. And we do have Sheriff Maine online. And if you remember from the meeting when we considered that scanner, the 100,000 is not the full price of that piece of equipment, but there's some other other pieces, grants and things going into that. But did you want to speak to that, Sheriff?
Sure I can. Apologize. It has been a little chaotic on this end the last couple of days as we're getting everything running, and some things didn't line up the way we would hope, but we're getting there. So, yeah, the board asked me to, get creative, look for some more grant opportunities, and this one included. So we kind of broke it down for the 2% request and review for the tribal grant. And then obviously the MMRMA grant that we were looking at originally. And then there was a few $1,000s left on our end that I did talk to Administrator Controller Smith about those used cars that we were just discussing, and potentially selling a few of those and generating a little bit of capital to offset that cost as well. I'm not going to go into a big spiel about the whole need for that. I think that documentation was pretty clear when I sent it out, and all the things we've seen already and continue will see. We really do need one of these units. I think one of the questions that was posed maybe by the public before was, were we the only one in the area looking to have one? And it was just absolutely the opposite. We're only one of the ones that don't have one at this point in time. So any questions, I'll try to answer them for you, gentlemen.
Any questions?
Yeah. I don't have any questions, but I really appreciate you stepping back and reworking this request for us.
Absolutely.
I know how important it is for safety of employees and the people that we're hosting at the facility.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Any other comments?
I just say, I feel this is a critical need to keep inmates and personnel, but also to protect the county's finances in lawsuits down the road. If we can do anything, all we have to do is to do away with one lawsuit, and we paid away that machine.
Right. Yep. Okay. Thanks, Sheriff.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. We'll move that item forward, and item 15 is review and assess the semi-annual 2% application from the Humane Animal Treatment Society requesting $40,000 for shelter improvements.
I believe Sarah is online.
I
am. Hello.
Hi. Hello.
Everybody's doing good today. I can give a quick review on what we're looking for in regards to this project. So it is specific to our cattery and cat housing in the new building lobby areas. So we are looking for to finish up this project for a couple of reasons. We had some large scale quarantines the past couple years, multiple cases in 2024, which can be caused by the rust in our current cat housing in the front lobbies. So just to kind of give an idea of how many animals we house, last year we did intake almost 500 cats, 367 adoptions. So that's 367 cats going back out to the community that have been spayed and neutered. So updating of this housing would allow us to house more. With the infection control, we have been cited by MDARD on our last 3 annual reports on the rust in our cat housing that's currently there, which can make infection control very difficult for us due to the cleaning and things like ringworm spores will stick anywhere that there is rust. So we reached out to a company, Shoreline, to quote us easy to clean, safe housing catteries that will allow us to house more cats and house them with less quarantine days. The quarantine days do definitely increase the length of stay the animals are here. So the goal of this project would be to increase, again, these cat intakes and adoptions, but by decreasing cost. Less ringworm quarantine definitely means less cost of additional testing for these cats, less cost of animal care for the cats, quarantine PPE, and so forth. So this would be a long-term housing solution with warranties expected to, last 15 plus years, and would make a huge just improvement in the capacity and the difference we can make in the community with housing these animals.
There's no shortage of stray cats.
There is not. And we do also do free and reduced spay and neuter. So safely being able to house those animals, less labor with the cleaning for the ringworm and other infectious diseases with the cats, we could certainly do a lot more of that.
Okay.
Just so we can move forward a little bit for an open for the public for understanding things, we can stop using acronyms and say the department names. I'm gonna ask anyone over here if they know what MDARD is.
Oh, sorry. This is the Michigan Department of Agriculture and Rural Development. Because we are a state licensed shelter, we do have to go through audits and inspections annually.
Thank you. That it just helps public understand the vast nature of oversight that we have to follow.
Yep, absolutely.
Any other questions, comments? We'll move this forward. Director Henry, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep. And that completes our business items. And we'll move right down to general public comments.
Time back in again?
No.
Just say times 2.
Times 2. All right, so I have a question for you. You can answer the next meeting. According to the auditor guy, we have $11 million last year we didn't assign somewhere. Of that, there was $3,6,878 extra from the projects we didn't use, according to him, last term. Could we use that money for 2.8 million of anybody to bring back the road patrol? That is my question for the next session. Thank you.
Good morning, afternoon. I got that. It's still morning. Good morning.
Morning.
So the first thing that I wanted to say is thank you to Sheriff Maine. And again, to all of you that had turned down the body scanner so that other avenues of financials can be looked into. I did want to add, though, that I had reviewed through the state the opioid lawsuit information and language that had gone along with that. And while it does seem as if it cannot directly be used for anything such as a body scanner, that money, the way that I read it, can be used for programs. So it may be potential use if you were to consider a body scanner. If somebody had gone to the jail and had that they would then be entered into a certain program, in which, if that were the case, I would believe that opioid lawsuit money could potentially be used to purchase the body scanner, again, if it were part of a program for opioid use. The next thing that I had wanted to bring up was the recycling center. First and foremost, I do not think that this is the time that we look and do a recycling center. But most importantly, my largest concern is we are one voice on this board. So just as a little example, and this isn't coming down the chute, and no, it's not been mentioned anywhere before, but let's imagine that the governor says we all need to have a method to recycle radioactive material. Where do you think that radioactive material is coming? We are one vote on a board with 7 other counties. I prefer not to see other counties bring the recycling material here, but what I do request at this time, and the reason for this is because the only way that I found the bylaws for this committee that was referred to earlier in the meeting was through Gratiot County. I don't see bylaws anywhere within our minutes or record of that. So I request that the bylaws to this proposed committee are publicly posted for everybody to easily find, the same way that we can find the bylaws for this board. And again, before this recycling center moves forward anymore, I would ask that you all consider deeply what could happen if Isabella County is one vote on a voice with 7 other counties for what takes place in our county. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So I don't know exactly who is in charge of this whole jail construction or the architect, but there are some major questions I have here. I don't know how to ask it nicely, so I'm just going to ask it. Some of these things were pretty simple that they messed up on. Like, who doesn't know a hood needs electric? And who doesn't know toilets need to be spaced? And the taxpayers are paying for this. This should have been automatically whoever did the architect or construction. We should not be paying for their mistakes. This is just easy stuff to figure out. I mean, simple construction, people. Whoever's doing this are making bad mistakes. These are simple mistakes and should not be approved. You're putting more time into a scanner than you are a multi-million-dollar project. Somebody should have been overseeing this project a little closer, because these are just architectural mistakes or simple, just bad construction. It's costing us lots of money. Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else for general public comment?
I was happy to hear the presentation from the contractor for the jail. If any of you have worked or toured or experienced the old jail in any way, shape or form, a new one was necessary. I say this because I worked tirelessly on the road patrol millage passage. There was a lot of, shall we say, disinformation out there. That's a nice word. I'm asking you to make public there's still money left in the account. I mean, this jail is not over budget, contrary to the belief of so many people in this county. People we talked to, that jail, it's costing us. No, we tried to present facts and they weren't received. We didn't get a lot of support or reinforcement. If we ever want a sheriff's department again, which I'm sorry, but as someone who lives out county, we need a sheriff's department. I'm asking you to please make public the numbers, the final numbers of the jail, so that people can see that maybe their beliefs are incorrect. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for general public comment? Right, seeing no one else, announcements. Commissioners, any announcements? Yes, sir.
Had the opportunity to attend a multi-county Farm Bureau event to meet the legislators. We had 2 state senators, 3 representatives, and probably 7 other commissioners. So opportunity to discuss what's going on. Surprisingly, some of their issues are the same ones we're having. And it's a Gratiot County is looking into redoing their jail right now. That's only been remodeled once, but they're looking into structurally to see what happens because they need to upgrade that system. So some of the other ones are updating that. Just one other comment. I always like to correct the record. If there's any misinformation up there, I'd like to update it. The material recovery facility is, you've got the Heartland Material MMP group. What that does is they're guaranteeing they'll bring material to us. Isabella County has full control of that facility. It will not be a partnership. Whatever this board does, it's completely within this county. So what that agreement is that they promise to give us material, we don't have to accept it. They're saying they're going to supply that material, but control of the facility remains 100% Isabella County and this board. So just to want to straighten up information that gets put out that is not true. So the Heartland Group is an agreement between counties to work together to share resources. We don't have composting, so we're using them because the plan requires that all of these, they all have to be assessed. So whether it's part of the landfill, composting, we don't have a very good facility for yard waste right now. You take it, but we don't really compost it well. So some of the other counties have composting facilities so they can take that material. It'll actually help them take care of ours. So anyways, I just wanted to update that. Like I said, we try to keep everything it is, but that facility is 100%. The grants that $2.1 million grants that we already got coming into that facility is something that is built. And if you ask the other counties, they don't want to be involved in that. They're happy that somebody's taking the lead on that because it is a big responsibility. So
good. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'd just like to point out that I'll be attending the Michigan Action Network's Legislative Day, May 21st, on behalf of AidCap, and that's where we give awards and also interface with legislators and all that. At the time when there's so much uncertainty and stress, it's really a good idea to talk to those people and find out how everything's coming down from Washington and how it affects the state and county.
Yes.
Just wanted to comment that I'm still working with a work group to come up with bylaws for the Isabella County Opioid Advisory Committee. That committee, once it's formed, will determine the best use of those settlement funds to serve the residents that are afflicted with opioid illness. And getting real close down to just looking at one fine tuning on a membership category, and should be able to get that over then to county administration for legal review and something that comes before us, and then the committee can be appointed and start working together to come up with the necessary documents, requests for proposals and scoring criteria and the like. So anxious to see this come before the board and get some good use out of those funds, the interest from those funds for the previous year.
Just like a comment on that and say, when we decided to bring these suits against these providers and so forth, some counties were afraid to do it and they didn't do it. And so because we did go forth and bring those suits, we get more money. Got to be bold.
5%, yeah.
Yep. Very good. It's been a long road getting that in place, but appreciate all the work you've done on that.
It's a good work group, and I suspect a lot of those will be eventually appointed to the committee by the board of the representative agencies.
Very good. Any other announcements? Okay, hearing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved, Joe Lozinski.
Support Reno.
All those in favor, say yes.
Yes.
Adjourned at 12:05. Got to mention goal setting meeting at 2.